In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern where we potentially need to be concerned about a hurricane striking the Gulf Coast, Texas and Louisiana in particular. But still, as I stated yesterday, be on the lookout. Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, nobody's necessarily out of the water yet. We're also going to be discussing the upcoming pattern as a whole across the nation, where there is going to be some big time temperature swings, a lot of storminess for some areas, and definitely it's going to be an action-packed one. There's also plenty of other threats in the tropics as we are approaching the season peak. So let's just dive into things. And this is the past 7 days of temperatures, and I just wanted to point out that we have dealt with basically what we were expecting. Colder here for the plains, even the Midwest as well, the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, and deeper south. This is the area where it's the least prominent, but it's still there, as you can see in the blues. The most prominent areas are going to be across this zone here. So New Mexico, Texas, I know you guys have been frying up, so I'm glad for you guys. And then up there in Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois, it's been the most prominent over the past 7 days, better yet. So the 1st through the 8th here of September. And this is all coming as a result of this warmer air mass setup for the West. Definitely, this has played a massive role in this. So definitely glad to see that forecast panning out. I know a lot of you were excited about the cooler temperatures that were on the way. We were forecasting this for, I would say, weeks out before it arrived, and sure enough, it did occur there. Let's take a look here at the precipitation overall for a lot of these storms, and obviously all of our eyes are going to be focused here on the tropics. We have this system developing. Already, we have a cone forecast from the National Hurricane Center, so we will be looking at that at the end of this video, where they are forecasting a hurricane striking somewhere between Texas and Louisiana. This one is going to really quickly develop. There's also a lot of moisture around for the entire Gulf Coast, as you can see. So for areas along the Texas coast, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida here, into Georgia and South Carolina, all of these areas already dealing with some sudden downpours, thunderstorms, and showers as a result of this tropical system. As you can see, we really don't deal with much other activity outside of that for now. We have overall a trough still set up over the east, especially the northeast here, and warmer temperatures prevailing here across the west, Rockies, and even into the plains and Midwest. Now we're starting to see those warm temperatures return. Let's take this towards Tuesday on September 10th. And what we see is our low has now dropped down to a 996 here, just offshore of South Texas there. This is definitely an intense system, and still, even though it's not really bringing any bands on shore unless you're in very far southern Texas here, we are dealing with downpours, thunderstorms, and showers once again for the entire Gulf Coast here as a result of this system. Some of these might just be around, but overall, there's a lot of tropical moisture in this corridor here, and it's all kind of interwebbed. So that is what we are dealing with. Jet stream is doing something like this, still bringing those colder temperatures here to a lot of the east, as you can see, especially the northeast, but that is going to come to an end at some point here very shortly. By Wednesday, September 11th, not a very good date, of course, we see 979 millibar low pressure center approaching the coast of Louisiana, according to this European model. Could be further east, could be further west. We really don't have anything set in stone yet, so please pay attention to this storm if you are anywhere along the Gulf Coast. I highly recommend you continue to track what the National Hurricane Center is coming out. And of course, here on the channel, we will give you guys daily updates, just letting you know what's expected and kind of going over those National Hurricane Center updates here as well. Precipitation all around for that Gulf Coast, but now stretching and bulging to the north here across that western Gulf Coast. So for states like Texas into Louisiana, Mississippi, and even southern Arkansas, we're now seeing those downpours. The jet stream really quickly racing kind of eastward and then northward here in the west, and this is bringing a lot of showers and thunderstorms onshore here to the Rockies and a lot of that Pacific Northwest there. Warmer temperatures trying to build in for a lot of the east. It's important to note that this storm will bring anomalously cold temperatures, there we go, for these areas. Typically, tropical systems bring with them cooler temperatures while they're overhead. Once they pass, that'll obviously also pass with it, but areas underneath these storms can anticipate some cooler temperatures with it. Obviously, that's not the main focus, but that is just a side effect of these systems. Pretty strong low over Idaho as well, 994. Definitely worth noting. For Thursday on September 12th, we see the system kind of rides right up the Mississippi River. Not the beginning of the Mississippi River here, but it does kind of tack onto it between Louisiana and Mississippi there, between Arkansas and Mississippi as well, right where that Mississippi River runs. And it is over northern Mississippi by this point. So we are seeing impacts for all of these areas due to this now. Probably down to a tropical storm or tropical depression, but still carrying all of that moisture with it. So flooding is going to be a massive concern with this system. Wind along the coast is now definitely becoming more of a threat, as this system is expected to be a strong tropical storm, maybe even a hurricane. Could even get stronger than that. We alluded to it yesterday, but these waters are very warm. Yesterday, this low was not expected to even get this strong. We could continue on in that very bad direction of expecting this one to get even further intensity. So don't be surprised if this one overperforms. I'm just going to put that out there now. Don't say I didn't tell you. Now, we do see that a lot of areas, even as far south and eastward as Georgia and Florida, there are still seeing showers and thunderstorms. We could see a band from this tropical system stretching into Alabama and the panhandle of Florida. This is going to be a far stretching system, and it's going to bring many different impacts. We see for the Northwest a 990 millibar low pressure center over eastern Montana, jet stream coming in underneath it, and then flying up to the north and even the northwest here for a time before really racing eastward here and spreading out. So the jet stream is doing this pretty typical underneath and over top of lows to see this. What's interesting is that we have cooler temperatures spreading for the Northwest, even enough to where we are seeing snowfall in Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming here. Some of those mountainous areas by Thursday seeing some of their first snowfall. If you want to know when to expect your first snowfall, by the way, we have uploaded that video just a couple of days ago, so be sure to check that one out. But these areas I don't think are expecting it by early September, so this is definitely a little bit early for them. Let's keep going, take it towards Friday here on September 13th, and as expected, this low is rapidly lowering in intensity. By the time it's reaching southern Missouri, northern Arkansas area, we do see some pretty far stretching bands with this one, stretching into some of these states like Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, even as far southward here as Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina as well. Definitely flooding is going to be a big concern for all of these areas, as sudden downpours could be very possible here. Let's keep going, take this towards Saturday afternoon here, and that's going to be the 14th of September. Cabo gets hit with a tropical system there in the Pacific. Very interesting. And really, we're left with the remnants of whatever this ends up being over the southeast, even as far northward as West Virginia, Virginia dealing with this. So definitely some heavy rainfall could still be left over from this system. And really, we're quieting down by this point as far as the pattern is concerned. Let's see what Sunday has in store. Still some kind of broad precipitation expected. It's pretty hit or miss here, but for the Midwest, Deep South, Ohio Valley, into the Southeast as well. All of these areas could see some precipitation. Also, the southern four corner states seeing some monsoon activity, some late season monsoon activity here. Definitely very interesting. The jet stream is pretty interesting. It really broadens out once it hits the east. So we see a stronger jet stream out west, but it's really stretching out once we reach the east here. So should see some pretty neutral temperatures in these areas compared to normal. Let's take a look at Monday on September 16th. And what we see is that the deeper south areas are still seeing some thunderstorms and showers around. So the tropical system comes in, it brings a stormy pattern, and it kind of stays that way even after this storm has passed. So it's kind of going to change the tides, if you will, in the pattern, which is going to be interesting to say the least. Let's take a look at Tuesday on the 17th here. We see another pretty strong low over eastern Montana again. We get a kind of northern jet look here, in my opinion. Something like this with the northern jet meeting with that southern jet. And what this is doing is it's bringing warmer temperatures for these areas and also very stormy conditions throughout portions of the Rockies just to the west of this low. Definitely very interesting. As we see the Pacific Northwest see some showers as well in there, as well as southwestern Canada. And then again, the deeper south into the southeast and even mid-Atlantic now some of the Midwest also seeing some heavier storms. And again, we got to watch these areas still as we're reaching the peak of hurricane season. Could see something try to spark up in these areas as we've seen all season long. These have tried to kind of develop. We haven't seen much of that happen until this current system, which is more of the southern Gulf here, but pretty close to home as it's developing. So definitely these always need to be watched. As we reach towards Wednesday on the 18th, we see another snowy day here for the Rockies. Jet stream is really ridging for the east, so we're seeing some warmer temperatures, especially over the central states. A little less dramatic here over the more eastern areas where there is some storms in there, some showers and thunderstorms occurring. Again, 1,000 millibar here, 1,004 down there, 1,005 for Canada. We're seeing some broad low pressure throughout these areas, which is allowing for these storms to take place. And we're seeing snowfall in portions of Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, maybe a little bit for Colorado, and maybe a little bit for Utah. I can't really tell right there. So a sign of the times. We are moving towards the winter time, and we're seeing this model really show that here as we're beginning to get those flakes flying on multiple occasions here. And obviously, by the time we reach October and November, this is going to be a common thing to see on the models. So a little bit of an early sneak peek as to what the future weeks and months hold. Total precipitation, it should come as no surprise that we have an area of perhaps above average amounts here across the Rockies as we have this kind of racing to the north jet stream on multiple occasions, bringing these storms throughout these areas. And also, it should come as no surprise that we have above average amounts expected throughout a lot of these areas, especially Texas and Louisiana, but also Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, perhaps, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina. There should be some above average precipitation spread throughout these areas. And there we go. You see it here. We see the above average precipitation, maybe not so much in the southwest or the south of the Rockies, but these northern Rockies and Pacific Northwest, this is an above average amount. So we are seeing more storms than what's typical with these onshore storms, and also that racing to the north jet stream bringing these. Our tropical system is sure to bring far above average precipitation, so expect a whole lot, and potential flooding in these areas is definitely going to be a big time concern. Still below average across a lot of the plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast though, as this storm doesn't really reach that far northward. Unfortunately, I know it's been very dry for you guys, but this one is not going to really make a difference for all of you. Now, the temperature pattern, we do see cooler temperatures still here. And by tomorrow on Monday, they're still here as well. Tuesday, starting to warm up. Lows are a little cooler. Wednesday here, warmer air is around. There's those anomalously cold temperatures underneath that tropical system here. Far below average, actually, for Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, southern Missouri, portions of Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. We could be seeing 10 to 15 degrees or even 15 to 25 degrees below normal there in those blues within the greens. So definitely a far below average pattern for these areas. And also for the west, we get this little trough moved in, and this is bringing far below average temperatures to these areas in the northern Rockies as well. So definitely something to look for. More of the middle and then up into the Great Lakes is where we're seeing the most above average temperatures for those regions. As we keep going, we see that tropical system continues to bring below average temperatures for a while. Still here, even by some of the temperatures like the highs on Wednesday, the 18th here, we still see below average temperatures for portions of the east. Although you can pretty much tell that we have a ridge here in the east, this storm system is continuing to bring below average temperatures anywhere nearby it in a complete radius, as you can see. Let's keep going. And really, we don't get a break from this pattern. This is the only sign that I see of a change on the 24th here. We do see below average temperatures here for a lot of the Rockies. And above average temperatures spreading in for the west coast. This could force the cold air eastward and expand upon this warmth in the west, which could bring about the next cold pattern in the east. Time will only tell. It's definitely going to be a long one to track here. As we take a look at the long range temperature forecast, the next 5 days kind of tells the same story. These areas dealing with the below average temperatures due to the storm moving through. So keep that in mind. This is mostly due to that storm moving through. Above average temperatures for a lot of the Rockies, Midwest, Great Lakes there. Below average temperatures still for the west here, especially the west coast, as we have a below average PNA. As we keep going, this is the 20th through the 25th. I think this is a good frame to look at. And we see below average temperatures still prevailing for the west warmth starting to really take over for most of the east here. As we keep going, a lot of the same until about that end of September, early October pattern. Take this with a grain of salt. I know I'm calling for a below average temperature September, but I'm open to the idea that it could be different. But this model does kind of see the short range, and it likes to kind of continue it into the long range sometimes. And that could be what we're seeing here, or it could just be warm. So we'll have to see, but still below average for the west, still above average for the plains. Again, seeing that continuation of what it saw in their short range. Midwest and Great Lakes above average as well, with below average temperatures along these coastal areas. Could be alluding to some tropical threats in there. Gonna have to wait and see what that has in store for us. Some signs of below average temperatures once we reach into October here in the east. Now the next 30 days overall, again, below average for a lot of the east and Gulf coasts, also for a lot of the west here, and warmer up here to the north. Now here is your European AI model. Really, we're not going to see much come out of the main development region, although we do have very high chances of development in here. This model has struggled in the medium to long range and picking up on these systems, I've noticed. So just a little bit of a review of this European AI model. But we do see our system that is developing here. Let's take a look. I'll actually just move us into the Gulf. We don't see anything develop in the main development region, believe me. The Gulf Coast here, let's take a look. And we see this system is a little bit further, maybe right on mark with what the European model was showing. Weaker as it strikes central Louisiana coast. And it does move up a little bit further to the east, I think. But that's very close to what we saw on our European model there. Very interesting. Here is the 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook. We will focus on potential tropical cyclone 6 in just a moment. But for the time being, we do have a very high chance of development here on this more western threat there in the MDR, which again is the area between the Caribbean and Africa here. We do see that there is a 70% chance over the next 7 days, a 60% chance over the next 2. So that is going to really allude to the fact that the best chance for development is in the shorter to medium range, not the long range with this one. Not to say that it can't develop later on, but it is more likely than not that we do see this one develop here over the next 2 to 3 days, call it. This one to the east of that one here, we have a 0% chance over the next 2 days, so more of a long-range threat, but a 50% chance over the next 7 days. So again, days 3 through 7 there is when we see a flip of a coin chance of this one developing. Before that, near 0%. Let's take a look here at the cone forecast for potential tropical cyclone 6. And what we see is that it is going to stay. It's going to reach tropical storm status by tomorrow afternoon is the current expectation. Remain that way until 1 a.m. on Wednesday. That's a lot of time. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then hurricane status by Wednesday afternoon before striking somewhere between Texas and Louisiana. Again, the model guidance we just saw suggests a more central Louisiana strike. The National Hurricane Center does see some data to suggest that maybe it's a little bit further west than that and could even be as far west as the more central Texas coast. So there's a lot of variables at play here. Again, a lot of time between now and Wednesday afternoon / evening when we would be expecting a strike. So that is going to give it a good chance of pretty good development here, further development. And that is something that I'm going to be really focusing on at the utmost, is the potential for this one to develop even more than what these models are suggesting. Definitely something that we will be tracking. Keep in mind, we currently have a maximum sustained winds of 50 miles per hour. This is over tropical storm winds. They're just not seeing it as a tropical system yet. This would instantly make it a tropical storm. It might move right past tropical depression if it picks up those tropical characteristics. So we're already at 50 miles per hour. And we'll be at hurricane at 74. This is very close, 14 miles per hour away from being a hurricane. We have 3 or 4 days until this one strikes. That leads me to believe that category 2 or even 3 or more should not be completely ruled out. It's not going to take as much as it typically would for it to develop that far. It's just my 2 cents. Here, lastly, is the kind of spaghetti model plot from the European ensemble model. And we do see that many of these develop this one pretty far in intensity here. We're talking about 50, 60, 70 knots there if it's approaching Louisiana. A little bit weaker if it hits Texas there. So the more west, or better yet, the more east it is, the more intense this one is expected to become according to these ensemble models. And the further west it is, the weaker that storm would be. We do see this high risk one. We see a very strong storm here 100 knots, and many of these showing, 950s, 960s, 940s, and even 930s here as far as the intensity of that low pressure system. This would likely be a major hurricane out there somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic. So we get a really strong indication here from this European ensemble model that we could be dealing with yet another hurricane out there in the middle of the Atlantic as well. As of now, we don't see any signs of development on that furthest east threat, the one that is currently orange and more of a long range threat. But we'll have to wait and see. Sometimes these ensemble models don't really pick up on these things in the long range correctly. And that's exactly what we've seen with both of these systems, really, that are currently expected to develop. So definitely take it with a grain of salt. We could see even more than just this on screen. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe. We do upload every single day, and I'm going to be really closely tracking the tropics with you guys day in and day out. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.